Hi there, I'm Amanda. Today I'd like to review John C. Maxwell's book, The 360-Degree Leader. But first, I'd like to introduce myself. So who am I? I'm currently a master's student in the adult education program with a concentration in workplace learning. I was enlisted in the United States military for 5 years. My most recent full-time job was a training coordinator for a large international coffee company. I'm the oldest of 2 girls, and I've played sports or engaged in competitions for as long as I can remember. I've always gravitated towards leadership with any group and have been in many leadership positions in my career. These are anything from an official position, such as the leader of a team within an organization, to the unsaid leader of a thrown-together sports team. Through my many positions as a leader, I've learned and continue to learn about myself and about being a leader. I feel you can never stop learning, even in a subject that you're fairly comfortable with. This is why I chose to take this course as an elective in this book to review. So now that you know a little bit about my background and leadership experience, let's talk about the book. I selected The 360-Degree Leader by John C. Maxwell. What really drew me to the book without even opening it was a subtitle, Developing Your Influence from Anywhere in the Organization. This struck a chord in me. I've often struggled with wanting to do more, but feeling like being in the middle, that I couldn't have as great of an impact. So I picked up the book and skimmed through it. If you're like me, you often struggle with how to handle certain aspects of leadership when you're not the top leader. This book gives real practical situations that mid-level leaders face and how to take them on. The book starts with myths. Examples of these are the position myth on page 4. This is described as, I can't lead if I'm not at the top. And there's also the destination myth on page 8. This is, when I get to the top, then I'll learn to lead. Maxwell explains why each of these is a myth and then shares some of the realities that may have contributed to them. The next section of the book addresses some of the challenges that 360-degree leaders may face. Maxwell identifies, defines, and gives examples of these challenges. He also shares suggestions as to how to avoid, address, and solve these. An example of this starts on page 34, the frustration challenge. This challenge is related to following an ineffective leader. Maxwell gives several examples of leadership types that no one wants to follow, and then he gives you suggestions for solutions. Sections 3, 4, and 5 of the book suggest ways to lead like a 360-degree leader. Maxwell suggests that you should lead up, lead across, and lead down. He gives several principles you should follow for each. On page 104 of the Lead Up section, Maxwell suggests that to lead up is to be willing to do what others won't. He states, successful people do the things that unsuccessful people are unwilling to do. He goes on to give examples of what other people are unwilling to do and how by doing these things, you will become a 360-degree leader. Section 6 explains the values of having good leadership at any level within the organization. Maxwell states, the better 360-degree leader you become, the greater impact you will be able to make. He then gives examples of these and encourages you to keep reading and keep these in mind when the going gets tough. There are also 2 extra sections at the end of the book. The section titled Create an Environment that Unleashes 360-Degree Leadership is directed to those who are already at the top. Maxwell gives a few suggestions on how to equip and enable your team to utilize the 360-degree approach. He calls this the leader's daily dozen, and he challenges you to do this every day. The last section of the book serves as a workbook to use in your own practice. This allows you to go through what was just covered in the book and specifically apply all the sections to your leadership practice. Each main topic is restated, and then Maxwell gives you a list of questions and activities to complete. Now that you know what the book is about, I'd like to share my thoughts as to how the book applies to the course and whether or not it's practical to everyone, as it claims. Overall, I agree with Maxwell's perceptions. When in a leadership position, there are many people involved. Being a mid-level leader seems to be the toughest place to be sometimes, kind of like being stuck between a rock and a hard place. And with that, you often get tunnel vision and disregard some of the people and positions that are affected by your leadership. This is why it's so important to really take a 360-degree position while in a leadership role. Maxwell seems to favor the behavioral approach to leadership, specifically a democratic one. This is demonstrated throughout this book by the main theme, investing in your followers and teaching them to be 360-degree leaders as well. I took a team development course over the summer, and leadership was very important. You need to be aware as to what type of leader you should be and how to approach the team you are leading. Maxwell and the book we used in the team class both suggest that leaders should encourage high morale, job satisfaction, and commitment from their followers. Each member of the team that you lead is an important piece of a bigger picture. Maxwell explains in one of his myths, the freedom myth, on page 14, that when you're the top leader, things don't get easier for you. In fact, they become more difficult. I agree with this. I've always had the thought that the higher up you go in an organization, the more restricted you are with your actions. However, those actions tend to have more responsibility. Maxwell explains that you aren't free. You're just at a different level. I've experienced this time and again as I've progressed in companies. I've also heard friends share the same thoughts. I think that Maxwell really nailed it on many of the common beliefs about leaderships and their myths. When I first saw Maxwell's leadership loop on page 161, I thought of servant leadership. This has been in the back of my mind throughout the book as an underlying thought, but here it was in picture form. In the North House text, servant leadership is similar. It's described as putting your followers first and really being invested in their growth. Maxwell describes this leadership loop as a way to build a foundation for you and your followers so they want to follow you. He believes that you should also invest in your people by giving them resources to become that 360-degree leader themselves. So after all that, the question is, would I recommend others to read this book? My answer? Absolutely. Not only was it an easy read, but it was fairly engaging due to all the examples. I personally was able to relate to the myths and challenges sections and how I can overcome them and help others as well. Maxwell's use of real-life situations and examples really make the book applicable to anyone at any level of leadership. He not only provided examples of what not to do, but he also gave examples of what to do. This concludes my review of John C. Maxwell's 360-degree leadership book. Thank you for listening, and I hope it was informative and interesting. I look forward to reading your comments and suggestions. Have a great day.